Hey everyone, my name is Nicolas Deferrand. Nice to meet you all. I'm a music composer based in Paris, France, as you can probably tell from my lovely French accent. I've been working professionally as a music composer for almost 10 years now, and for a wide range of projects and media, from TV to animation, podcast, advertising, and of course, video games. I am mostly known for scoring the indie game They Are Billions, which was very popular a few years ago when it came out. But I have worked on a lot of different games, from mobile to indie games and AAA, as a composer, a music editor, an orchestrator, and a sound designer. When young composers or aspiring composers come to me with questions, and looking for advices, the number one question that I'm asked is, how do I start? How do I get to work in the game industry as a musician? How do I get involved professionally with game music? This is a tricky question because there is not one way of doing this. There is no method, there is no rule book, there is no guidelines. It's very complicated because every composer is different. Every composer has a different story, and my story is different from Jason Graves' story or Austin Wintory's story, and absolutely different from yours. So what I'm going to do is that first I'm going to explain to you how I got involved in the game industry at first, and who knows, maybe it will inspire you to find your own path. And then we are going to look together at what are the possible solutions that you have in 2022 to kickstart your career. So first, maybe just a word about my music background. I would say that I come from the tradition. I'm academically trained, which means that I went to music school, music college after high school. I studied jazz and classical, and orchestration, counterpoint, harmony, and so on. Let me just start by answering a question that is asked quite a lot. Do you need to go to a prestigious college in order to have a career in the game industry? Do you have to go to Berklee College of Music, for example? Or Juilliard, or blah blah blah, whatever. The answer is no. You don't need to go to a prestigious and expensive school in order to have a career. I went to Berklee, which is, let's be honest, very expensive, because they have an amazing film scoring program. But remember, what's important is the quality of your education, not the school. And I think that this quality of education, you can get it everywhere in the world. You don't have to go to a prestigious school. So if you're anxious about it, don't worry so much. There are a lot of very good solutions out there. Private teachers, local conservatories, YouTube tutorials. I do think that having a good education in music theory is very important, depending on the music you are writing, of course. But still, I think that to study the great masters of the past and gaining as much knowledge as possible in music theory is very important. Not once in my career I've been asked to show a diploma to get a job. Not once, never ever. What was required of me is that I was able to write good music with a professional attitude. But never ever I've been asked to show a diploma. What matters is your portfolio. What matters is your music. Some people say that, yes, but going to a big school like Berklee, for example, it's great because you have a network, you build a network. Yes, that is true, but remember that the network that you build is a network of musicians. And other musicians won't likely offer you a job because they need a job themselves. So keep that in mind. What you need is a network of directors, game directors, producers, programmers, game developers, not a network of other musicians. So after my studies, I came back to France, and having the video game industry in mind, I was thinking how, as a video game fan, I could be involved in the game industry. How can I write music for games? Because that's what I want to do. And just a side note, I think you have to be a video game fan to score games. You have to know what it is to be a player to score games. If you're not really into it, but you want to do it just because it's, I don't know, fashionable or a good way to make money, or I don't know, it's not for you. I don't think so. You have to be a game fan. You have to be a gamer. So back to 2013 when I came back from the States, and I was kind of lucky and kind of at the right place at the right time, because something happened around 2010, and this something is what we call the indie boom. In 2010, indie games suddenly saw a big rise in popularity. Like thanks to games like Minecraft, indie games were super mainstream and popular, which was not the case before. Before, if you wanted to make a living writing music for games, you had to go where the money was, which was, published games, because indie games were not very popular at all. Like the press, websites, video game websites didn't really talk about indie games. It was all about, published games. But in 2010, everything changed. Suddenly, indie games were popular, and with that, something else came along: crowdfunding platforms, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Thanks to that, a lot of indie games were funded without a publisher. Players were super trustful, and there was no negative outcomes yet of crowdfunding. So a bunch of games were funded, a lot of projects. It was crazy. It was a very good time to be an indie game developer. And myself, I was a big backer. I backed a lot of projects. I was really into it, and I was super enthusiastic about all those games, all these indie games getting funded. And one day I found one that was super appealing, and I was like, damn, that'd be so cool if I could write the music for this game. So I sent an email, and I was like, guys, I backed your games, it's awesome. By any chance, do you have someone for the music? Because I would love to be involved with the game. I would love to work with you guys. So I sent my demo, and thankfully they responded positively. And they were like, we love your music, we would love to have you. And boom, I was in. This game was Lords of Shulima. It's an old school hardcore western RPG, and it was a type of game I was really into back then, and so it was just the dream for a young composer to be able to score this. And guess what? The studio who made this game? Well, it is the studio who made They Are Billions a few years later, which was a very, very, very popular game. So yeah, 2013, suddenly, thanks to Lords of Shulima, I was a video game composer. And so following that dynamic, following that path, I found a lot of projects to score, and all of them were funded with Kickstarter. And that way I was able to build a portfolio, make a name for myself. And another side note, I'm far from being famous. I'm not famous at all, and that's why you probably don't know me, guys. But I've been doing that for almost 10 years, as I said, so I must be doing something right. Now, let's talk about you guys. So, I did that to start in the video game industry. What can you do? Unfortunately, the crowdfunding thing, it's not as efficient as it used to be. When I started in 2013, it was kind of the peak of that crowdfunding madness. But it was almost 10 years ago, and a lot of things changed. And by that I mean abandoned projects, false promises, developers running away with the money at the end of the Kickstarter and never delivering the game. It happened quite a lot. And so the trust of the player went down very quickly. So now it's not really the same than what I call the golden era of crowdfunding. Now it's much more difficult to fund a project on Kickstarter. It doesn't mean that no games are being made. That's not it. A lot of games are being made. They just don't have access to a budget like they did in 2012. So what do you need to do? You need to build a network. You need to build a network of professionals in the industry, professionals that can potentially give you a job. So producers, game designers, programmers, game artists, and not just the top head of the studios, not the bosses. It's good to know everyone involved. For example, last year I scored a game and I was brought on this project by the lead artist of the game, not the producer, not the game director. I was recommended by an artist I had worked with before. So, try to know everyone. Your network must be as large as possible. Also, keep in mind that it takes a lot of time to build a network. Unfortunately, it's a long grind. Be patient, because it's worth it. So how do you build this network? You have several solutions for that. First, you can get close to students that are training to be programmers or game designers or game developers. They may not be in a position to give you a job right now, but they are going to evolve in the industry. And maybe in 5 years they will be, maybe in 10 years they will be able to give you a job. I know it's quite a long time to think about, especially when you're young. But as I said, it takes time to build this network and those relationships. For example, one of my friends, another composer named Malik Yai, he worked on a student project called Baby Storm. And guess what? This game just released on Switch. It's an actual commercial release. So, get close to the students, offer your services for free, of course, because most of them won't be able to pay you. Try to get involved with student projects, especially if you're a student yourself. It's a win-win. You get a project to train yourself, and maybe it will be the start of a new adventure. And you make friends and build relationships. Another cool thing to do is game jams. So what's a game jam? A game jam is like some kind of challenge where you have to make a game from scratch in 48 hours usually. It's very fun, it's very, very challenging, and it's a great way to build a network because you meet people and you have a game at the end of those 48 hours. So it's a great way to build a portfolio as well. And who knows, maybe your game from your game jam will gain some attention, and again it will be the beginning of something else, of a new adventure. It happened a lot in the past. So you can do them online like Ludum Dare or GMTK Game Jam. You can also do them on location. The most famous one is the Global Game Jam, which happens everywhere in the world. At least it was the case before COVID. I don't know if it's back yet, but it will be back in the near future, I'm sure of it. And I strongly encourage you to go on location. It's the best way to start building strong relationships. You can go to conferences and conventions. For example, GDC, to take the most famous one, the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco is the biggest professional event of the year in the game industry. It's a very efficient way to meet a lot of people. Go listen to the talks, go talk to the people. After that, go to the parties, go to the Unity party, the Unreal Engine party, whatever you can find, Try to make friends, try to have fun, and come back the next year and do it again and again the next year. And that's how you build relationships, That's how you make yourself known and seen. And I know it's expensive, especially if you're not living in the US. But if you can afford it, it is one of the best things you can do for your career. And GDC is not the only one. You can go to Indiecade, you can go to Game Connection. There are a lot of them. And, go to those conferences, go say hi, take business cards with you, and try to be as social as possible. Also, you don't have to start by being a composer to work in the game industry as a music person. For example, I worked as a music editor for Olivier de Rivière on games like Vampire, A Plague Tale Innocence, 1111 Memories Retold, Gridfall, The Technomancer. And it was a great way to experience the game industry from another perspective and add those titles to my credit list. You can be an assistant for a bigger composer, or you can infiltrate the game industry from another door. For example, you could start in QA and maybe find a way to switch to the sound department. For example, to take a famous example, Tommy Tallarico, he started in QA and now he scored like 200 games. Also, maybe you could try to find an in-house job. Those are very rare, but some big studios hire in-house composers, Blizzard, Riot, or sometimes smaller companies too. But keep in mind that usually you have to sign an exclusivity contract for those kind of in-house jobs, which means that you cannot work on anything else on the side. So basically my advice is make yourself known, make yourself seen, show people from the industry that you are around and that you are available to work. And I'm going to repeat myself, but it takes time. It's kind of a long grind, unfortunately, unless you are like very, very lucky. But for most of us, it's a long grind. It takes a lot of time. But it's going to be okay, don't worry. Just be patient and keep at it. Also keep in mind that it's a job that requires sacrifices. So what do I mean by that? It's kind of like having 3 choices, but you can only choose 2. So like social life, a career, and another one, I don't know, job security. At some point, if you want to do that job, you have to invest yourself 100%, and it means that you kind of have to let something go, you know? For example, I kind of put my social life on hold for a few years, and even now actually, because I needed that time to, you know, build my career, to make those connections, to work hard, to become a better composer, to build my website, to build my demo, to send emails, you know, to make myself known, to make myself available. So keep that in mind. You cannot have everything in life, and especially when you do a very competitive job like being a composer, you have to make sacrifices. So I talked about crafting a demo. So just a word about demo, because we talk a lot about, you know, crafting a demo reel and you have to have a demo reel and blah blah blah. Yes, it's true, you need to have a demo to show people, to show your music. In average, the person you're going to show your demo is going to spend around 7 seconds on each track, in average. It's not a lot. You know, it's like they're just going to listen quickly each track and that's it, because they don't have time or they're not really interested. So when you are making your demo reel, keep that in mind. Don't put tracks with, you know, long introductions and when it takes time to build and blah blah blah. No, just keep it not short necessarily, but efficient, you know. When that person is going to click on play, that person needs to be hooked immediately. So if it takes too much time to, you know, build your composition, your potential client is going to lose interest. Put your strongest track first. Again, you need to hook your client right away. Be efficient. You are not here to prove that you can write music like Mahler, for example. It's not the point. The goal is to get the gig. Your demo needs to have the best production quality possible. If mixing is your weak point, maybe hire a sound engineer just for a few tracks, you know, to be sure that you have a kick-ass demo. And try to show your personality. I've heard a lot people say, for example, all the demos that come from Berklee students sound the same. And that's bad. You don't want to sound like everyone else. Try to show that you are better and different. And don't add too many tracks to your demo, because it's too much to handle. Like, as I said, a client is not gonna have a lot of time to listen to your demo. So like 6-7 tracks, maybe it's enough. Some people say that it's good to put a weak track in your demo to make the other shines. That is kind of risky, and I don't encourage you to do that. Just put your best stuff. Alright guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope that was instructive. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me. I would be more than happy to give you some advices or and answer your questions. See you soon and good luck with everything, guys. Bye bye.